treated mix room, whatever, and it still worked out fine. Took a little bit more checking on different kinds of headphones and things and like Bluetooth speakers and stuff, but I made car listen.
Right.
Actually, I don't think I was doing car listens because we like weren't leaving our house for that week. We were just like totally in like don't know what's happening, freaked out, you know?
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, we I don't think we left our house for like 3 weeks straight.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
And then the
insanity.
Yeah, exactly. And the other takeaway from that one is, I had stems that were pretty heavily pre-affected, and so I kind of had to get deep on like the vocal sounds cool. It's got a like certain vibe to it. It's really processed already, but it was really wet, and so I couldn't compress it without bringing up reverb and stuff. So I had to get into kind of like using some like on the fab filter compressor, just like turning down the sides a bit, but then finding a reverb that felt the same to reinforce it after, so I could still like get the vocal density I wanted from some compression and treatment without making it too washy, and like just, you know, work. Basically the whole thing is working with what you have, and you can still do a good job.
It's like the mastering approach. It's like, okay, I can't change the mix, so I'm just going to master this mix. You know what I mean? You're not trying to like call the mixing engineer, say like, hey, can you pick up the kick drum? Like, no, this is the mix that was approved.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? This is what I'm working with.
100%.
You know?
But
and that's the job, right? You work with what you like you said it.
The other thing is
that's awesome.
I was stressed about that one specifically. Like the client and me had worked together a lot. Like I mixed a bunch of her other stuff, but there were two producers attached to that I would really want to work with more. And it's like the first time I'd worked with them ever, like on a project. And someone's like, "Oh, come on! Like, what are the odds? Like, you know what I mean? It's like this happens." I'm like, "Oh, this could be."
You thought you were going to butcher it.
Well, I didn't. You know, I knew I wouldn't, but I didn't know how. I wouldn't. And just then I ended up mixing like in that setup at home. I ended up upgrading the headphones halfway through the pandemic. I found like I got a used pair of like some.
I'm gonna guess Odyssey.
No, Focal.
Oh, Focal clears.
Yeah, so they were the ones cheaper than the clears because I couldn't find used clears and I couldn't stomach spending $1,500 on headphones in a pandemic random purchase. Yeah. But still, like upgraded that, did a few other things, referenced a lot more than normal, but
right.
Yeah,
that's the secret, I guess, is the referencing. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's like you know, you work with what you got. You know. I had to do a mix once on these, you know, these Sonys because I was just like mixing at midnight with my son sleeping, and I just couldn't put my speakers on.
Yeah,
and then I made a very dull, you know, because these are so bright. I just made a very dull mix, and then by the time the artist mastered it because he's also an engineer, and he just like really brightened it up. I was like, what the hell? It's so bright now.
I had that,
but it was like, okay, cool. But then we found it. We struck a balance.
Yeah, I had that. Know? There was another song I had to do with the same time frame that actually my mix was pretty. Like I like it still when I listen to the unmastered mix, but it was probably too dark for the genre it was in. And then I got someone to master it that I know, and it came back like way brighter than what I would have wanted. But it ended up getting approved by the artist, and like I was like, yeah, it's, you know. It's just like the headphone thing. You got that one I didn't reference enough. I just kind of went on like vibe, and it was like cool, but like there was like 4 dB too little top end. Yeah.
But I guess you just learn it and you know, improve, right? Like
exactly.
I guess the lesson is that, you know, just work with what you got. You know what I mean?
Like don't. It's like I was listening to yesterday a podcast about like when like a athletic like podcast with some coaches talking about stuff, and he's like, you know, like people like they want to start, like I've been running a lot the last couple of years, got into that over COVID just because it was my mental health play of like how to feel sane. And yeah, it's like you could just like spend all your time researching what the best shoe is and like not start for 6 months or ever, or you could just put on whatever reasonable shoes you already own and try, you know, and then upgrade eventually.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. I have a like I don't know if I've expressed this on the podcast yet, but I feel like you can kind of use whatever you have until it becomes painfully obvious that you need to upgrade. You know what I mean? Like, and that's 100%. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, okay, cool. I was on the Yamaha HS80s until it was painfully obvious that I needed to upgrade my monitors.
That same.
And then I still had to save up for like another year.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool. Like that's the game. But it's like, okay, like I didn't realize what I was missing out for a long time. And then when I did, it's like, okay, now I need speakers, you know?
It's actually crazy with those specific speakers. That's what I had when I first started mixing in our apartment or whatever. I had a pair of those for a few years. Like the stuff I did back then still sounds good now on them, but like it wasn't even a crazy expensive speaker. But I brought in like the Neumann, just the KH120s, the little guys. to try out.
Yeah.
And just like hearing that beside the HS8 or 80 or whatever it was at the time made it sound like the Yamaha was broken. Like if the high end was so harsh, or like there's that crazy mid-range thing going on. It's just, I was like, I heard it, the comparison once side by side. I was like, how did I even listen to these? It was mind blowing.
Yeah. Night and day. Yeah. And I got like, not even such expensive speakers, but for me, like I still have to, save up for a while, but I got these like Focal shaped twins.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, these translate so well. The mid-range, I don't have to second guess my mid-range ever anymore. Like it's just like, okay, that's gonna, and with the 80s, it was like literally like, okay, I might regret this EQ move.
It's weird though, because I know a lot of people that work on them and like them. And again, everything's subjective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the stuff I did in the 80s translated, but not nearly as much as like, okay, in working out, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a completely different, it's like the referencing, right? Like you said, like when you were on the headphones, okay, like let's just reference on the Bluetooth and the AirPods and this and that. And just to get everything 100% and, checked off.
Yeah.
And then when you have something that you know translates, eventually you're just kind of like, okay, cool.
Totally.
And then don't have to really leave your room. And that's the beauty.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Amazing. Yeah. So Josh, this has been like an awesome conversation. I'm so glad you took the time to do this and chat with me. I learned a lot, lots of great takeaways here also for the audience. I want to ask you, a question that I ask everybody on the show. It's the final question that you may know is coming or may not. But, just looking back on your journey, was there something that maybe you did or didn't do that you want to impart on your earlier self to be like, yo, Josh, keep at that. It's going to get you where you need to go. Or maybe the other way around, like, Josh, that's holding you back. Don't do it. What would be that one piece of advice you tell your younger self?
Yeah, I would say relating to career, my biggest piece of advice for my old self and anyone that's young and getting into this is relationships are everything. You have to be good at your job and skillful, but there's always going to be people getting more work that are objectively worse at your job than you because they have better relationship networking skills. And also those relationships have to be genuine. You can't be coming at it from like a give me work, like I'm not going to give you value kind of thing. You have to provide value for people, but yeah, just meeting as many people as you can, keeping out in relationships, learning how to do that. That's the most important thing. If I did that earlier, I probably would have had my transition and mixing earlier because I would know more people who would hopefully want to work with me because they know me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job at it now. So, all we can do is look forward, I guess.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
Keep at building those relationships. And
now is always the best time to start the thing you're trying to start.
Yes. Yeah. There's a book called Start by this guy named John Acuff, which I really liked. And I haven't read it, obviously, since I read it the first time, maybe 6 years ago. But it was like, just start something. And it really has carried me through a lot of things of just like, okay, just like you're not feeling that or you are feeling that, just do it or don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to break habits, but
for sure.
But yeah, starting is everything.
But yeah, thanks for having me on. This was really fun. I hope that we talked about something that was useful for people. I'm not even sure what we talked about at this point, but it was fun.
I know. No, definitely was useful. I learned a lot, so I'm sure the audience did too, because I am my target audience. So yeah, it was great. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Josh as much as I did. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, I'd super appreciate it if you would go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It really helps the show. And if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, that would also really help the show move forward. In addition to that, you can find us on social media. Just search for Secret Sonics. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And you can email me at secretsonics@gmail.com if you have any comments, feedback, guests you might want to recommend, anything like that. So that's about it for now. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe out there and dig in. Bye-bye.